dad was the engineer and could make things, but my mom she was very creative, very artistic, and but she passed away at at a very young age, and that was tragic. But it was through that after that I needed to find something to throw myself into. So that very next year I set about trying to build a guitar. I thought it was a good distraction. And during the time of doing that, I just loved the process. So it just something ignited in me when I made a guitar, and I realized that it encompassed so many different things. You know, my engineering background, my artistic flair, my love for guitars, because that's the one thing in my whole life that I was just always obsessed with. I can almost remember every guitar I've ever seen. It's just like something there. So I made that first guitar, and I made a second, and I made a third, and while I was making the second, I thought this could be a career. And I went to see Steve Vai play in Dublin, and it was the Ultrazone tour, and that album cover that you see in the bottom left of that image, that was the backdrop behind the stage. And I walked in there, I saw this incredible backdrop, and then Steve walked out on stage with a white Ibanez gem, and he was like dressed like the alien, but with a white guitar, and I was like, oh, this makes some sense. So I'm looking at him, looking at the image behind, and I was like, I'm going to build that guitar. So I went home and literally the very next day started to build the Ultra guitar. And I built that guitar for Steve. And in the interim, I was actually still building acoustic guitars, perfecting my art, with this dream that I was going to be an acoustic guitar builder. But the very, very first guitar that ever left my possession was Steve Vai's Ultra guitar that I hand delivered to Steve Vai. So the guy who inspired me to buy my first guitar was the guy who I gave the first guitar that I made to. And that was an incredible thing. Really, I can barely think of another experience since delivering that guitar to him that can beat that, because it was like my inspiration, And then in 2012, 15th of August, so 13 years ago yesterday, Steve Vai stepped out on stage with that guitar, because he didn't play it. I made it for him, but he never played it on stage. And then a tour was coming up, and he decided he'd like to play it on stage finally. So 13 years ago yesterday, Steve Vai played that guitar in Fort Lauderdale for the very first time, and I was there. So I've been thinking a lot about it just over the last couple of days and remembering that amazing thing. So never would I, in my wildest dreams at that stage 13 years ago, thought I'd be opening a store, just up the road from there. But it's wild. And the same night, connection to that same night, I met Beverly McClellan, who was playing support, playing along with Steve there. And we hit it off at soundcheck. And I had a prototype X20 with me. And the X20 that you see behind there, that was the very first time that the X20, which is our best-selling model, was played on stage. Again, 13 years ago, yesterday in Fort Lauderdale. So really, there's some really great memories that go right the way back to that time. And as I mentioned earlier, I met Larry through Steve Vai. There's so many things that have connected from that and come full circle. But so the Ultra guitar was the start of it, and these other guitars that you see at the top, and two violins, which I think if you were to look from a distance, somebody told you that the Phoenix and Sulach, the dragon violin, are violins. You may not even think that, but yeah, they're 6-string violins. So I've only made 4 violins in my career, and they've all been for Dennis Lau and a partner of his over there. So we've made some really amazing instruments. So Steve Vai, that connection took me on a journey. So a journey that's kind of runs parallel to everything else that I do. So in that, what that is all about is making guitars that look unplayable but still have ergonomics that you can play them. And Steve actually said that the Ultra guitar is his best balanced guitar. You know, it looks crazy, but it balances perfectly with the crazy long tail and sounds incredible. His wife is on record saying that that was his best sounding guitar on that tour. It sounded really, really cool. But you know, it's great to be able to build guitars that look unplayable, are really complex, but play really well. Bahamut, which was a spin-off from that, that I can very confidently say that that's probably the most famous guitar on the planet, and you probably have never heard of it. But in China, that guitar literally is known by name. Li Hong is a huge superstar out there, and it was a real privilege to build that. But that was going on, you know, building some of these really amazing pieces, and allows me to be creative with my artistic side. But these other guitars are more about the engineering side, and this is all about trying to create a guitar that's, in a lot of ways, its simplest form. You know, we mold these guitars from carbon fiber. We mold them in one piece. It's a really unique molding system that we use that allows us to build an entire body of a guitar and a solid neck in one piece. And what that allows us to do is it creates a guitar that's got a lot of strength and stability. You know, all you guys know probably from being here in Florida the benefits of carbon fiber, and that's why you've probably connected with Emerald in a big way. You know, it just gives you that freedom of not worrying about what the temperature and humidity is going to do to your guitar and wood. But also, the molding system allows us to create a lot of ergonomic freedom. You know, it's that system that allows me to mold in the different shapes. So a lot of people, you know, they see my guitars and they think they look a little bit different. But as you guys know, when you sit down and you play the guitars, they feel a little bit different. And that's one of the things that I'm excited about for here, is people will get to feel them rather than just see them on our website, because it's a different experience. You know, the bevels, that offset, the asymmetrical side that we have, that contour that allows it to sit so nicely into your leg. You know, those are small little details that the carbon fiber molding system allow. But it's been a journey of experimentation, and Larry, can you bring up that guitar? So this is really, really cool to see. So Larry brought this guitar to show me, and he bought it in 2004. It's guitar number 344 that we've ever made, and we've now made, what are we up into? Are we in the 12,000s? Must be pretty close.
100 away or so.
Okay, so we're almost at 12,000 guitars. But this guitar is really cool because it actually shows what my thinking was back then. So this guitar would have been molded by my brother-in-law. He was doing the carbon work at that time. I did the spray painting. And if you've ever seen Emerald guitars, the Emerald Cottage, the little building that we have concerts in and different performances, well, that used to be my spray booth. So that guitar would have been sprayed inside that amazing building. I can remember making this actual guitar all those years ago. But the cool thing is, if you show people, there's 2 sound ports on the side of this guitar. So I was starting to think about different ways to get the guitar to project better towards the player. And I can remember, I think I made 2 guitars like that. That might be the only one that actually left the factory. So it's a very special guitar. And I was starting to think about how we can get a guitar to project better towards the player. And you know, I suppose at that stage, everything that I was doing was kind of connected to tradition in terms of, you know, my thinking about shapes and things. And but I started to think, you know, more about going away from that, and that was the birth of an offset sound hole. So it was really that design that I was working on that was the essence of bringing me towards the offset sound holes that you see in all our designs. So yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to see it back. Um,
I've been looking for, I bought this 20 years ago. And I was often wondered, where did this come from? Who did this? I'd never seen one another like it. And I thought I'd come here today and see what maybe Alistair had something to do with it. I was blown away to have that, to find out this guitar that I've been wondering about for 20 years was something that he laid his hands on. I'm flabbergasted, just simply because it's one of one. That is it. And I've had this guitar, like I said, for 20 years. I've loved it every time I picked it up. It's a great guitar and a wonderful man that built it.
Isn't that cool? But it's yeah. Oh, thanks for that. I really appreciate you bringing it in, and we've been able to see some of our early guitars come back to us, and it does, it really makes you think about the journey. And I was actually able to acquire back guitar serial number 1. I can consider the Ultra Guitar Zero. But there was a guitar that had a serial number 1 on it, and it was actually there the day that I delivered the guitar to Steve, and I gave it to his assistant who had set up the meeting with Steve, and he lost it. He lost that guitar. He had to sell it for various reasons at the time, and but the guitar turned up again, and he had been looking for it for many years after things kind of went better again. And but the guy came to me asking for information about the guitar, and knew exactly what it was straight away. So we did a deal. We built him a really special custom guitar in return for that guitar, and guitar number 1 went back to Rich. That I gave it to originally. You probably know Rich Peg. Rich Peg? No. But yeah, so it's nice to see the guitars and the history. It's come so far, and I was going to talk around the different models and tell you the timeline, but it's maybe too many to go through. But yeah, I think that talking about the connection between acoustic and electric, it was electric guitars that inspired me originally. But it was acoustic guitars that inspired me by the challenge. In a lot of ways, an electric guitar is just a function of the pickups and the strings. There's a lot involved in making something of great quality in an electric guitar, but I always felt that the big challenge was to build an acoustic guitar with carbon fiber, where you're trying to work on tonality, you're trying to get the ergonomics, you're trying to get all those things to work together. There's so many elements. But I still always had this passion to try and build an electric guitar, and I met this guy over here, Steve Subaru, and we sat in his house. He very kindly invited me to stay at his house up in the Amelia Island, and we spent a lot of time talking about guitars and electric guitars at that time. And shortly after that, I did actually design an electric guitar, and I made a mold for an electric guitar. So you're probably the only guys in the world that know there is a mold that exists for an emerald electric guitar. I have yet to make a single guitar out of that mold. So someday I might dust that off. But also on a second trip back to Steve, so I was at Steve's in March of 2020. We went there for the Amelia Island car show, and then the world changed. So I can remember we came down here, stayed at my brother's house just after that, and the world was closing down. So we literally got the last flight out of here back to Ireland when they shut down all the flights. But when we were back up at Steve's, we sat down and started talking about guitars and hybrid guitars and combining acoustic and electric and what that might be, and we sketched out a little bit of an idea. And then COVID was really the kick that made that idea come together, because whenever everybody was locked down, everybody started then to do these live feeds, these live sessions. So there was 3 musicians from my area that started doing these amazing live sets. It was Mark Black, it was David Kay, and Johnny Gallagher. And all 3 of them do this really cool looping stuff, and we're just doing amazing performances every night or every weekend. They would do these live sets, and I would feed off this. It was the only entertainment that we were getting. But I'd watch them do this looping where they would go back and forward, maybe changing instruments mid-set. They were laying down a line on their electric guitar and then the acoustic guitar, and working back and forward. And Katie's nodding her head; she knows what I'm talking about. And I started to think, well, maybe there's something that we can do that combines all those things. And I was thinking back to the conversations that I'd had with Steve, and really that was the birth of the Virtuo. So I very much, I always talk about those 3 musicians as being the guys who inspired it. But Steve, you definitely had a huge part in it as well. So thank you to that. But the Virtuo really, that scratched a lot of itches for me. It was a guitar that's a hybrid between acoustic and electric, but more electric than it is acoustic. And what I wanted to do with that was create a guitar that really could perform well in both worlds. But the thing is, you can't be all things to everything. You can't get the big bassy sound that you get out of an X30, out of a slim body. You can't get the big full acoustic sound out of that you get out of acoustic strings, and also get the right resonance from the electric pickups. There's always trade-offs. So what we've tried to do with that is make a guitar that limits those trade-offs as much as possible. So first and foremost, it's an acoustic guitar. It's been designed to project acoustically, but then it's got the electric guitar setup on it. And with the electric guitar setup, it's a little bit easier. You're getting most of the sound coming from the electric pickups, but you also do get a little bit of the extra warmth that you get from that hollow body. So it does definitely have a signature sound into the electric pickups. But then with the piezo pickups, because it's still a hollow body, you still get the movement of the top. You still get the resonance and the rich sound that you get from an acoustic guitar. So it gives you both of those together, and when you blend them, you get some really, really unique sounds. So it's a guitar that really has allowed us to go into a whole new area. If people ask me about how to choose a guitar, the Virtuo straddles the world between acoustic and electric, but stands with a much more weight on the electric side. The X10 Slimline, it's much more, it's the same body size, but it's a little bit more on the acoustic side, but you can get a good electric tones. So, it's always about trying to find the trade-offs and find the right balance. And just talking to a lot of you here today, everybody's got a different thing that they're looking for. The Virtuo isn't perfect for everybody, but for somebody like Katie who's discovered it, it's fantastic in the versatility that it allows, and those trade-offs soon disappear into the creativity that you can get from it. But as you look around the whole range, I've tried to create a range of guitars that not one really steps on the other's toes. They all do something different. They all have a specific need. The answer, scratch an itch, and that's why a lot of you guys have a lot of different emeralds, because they all fit in different brackets. From the big jumbo sound of the X30, which is my favorite acoustic sounding guitar. The day I heard that ring out for the very first time was just incredible. The X20, just as an all-rounder, it's the guitar, it's the most versatile. That's why we have various different custom versions of it, in the nylon string, baritone, 12 string. So yeah, it's a great all-round guitar. But if you like a a slimmer neck, then you've got the X10. If you want more compact guitar, you've got the X7. And so it's been great to be able to create a range of guitars that they have different purposes. But it's very much the whole journey. I have to say, just in closing, has been about inspiration. I talk about that a lot, and I was inspired by Steve, and he really changed my direction in terms of my interest in music, and ignited that fire. But it's all about inspiration, and we're inspired by music. I love hearing people playing our guitars. That's really what inspires me. And it's a real privilege whenever I hear so many people saying that they were inspired by the guitar. I'm not a very good guitar player. In fact, probably a terrible guitar player now because I play so little. But every time I hear you guys playing our guitars and hear the music you've created on it, we're part of that music, and that's something I'm really, really proud of. So thank you. So I think that's enough talking from me. I think it's time to hand over to Larry, and I think you're in for a real treat. Larry's music is, I was saying to somebody recently, it's the only musician that I know that with an acoustic performance can have a room in tears. It's really, really beautiful. So enjoy, Larry.
So y'all been having a pretty good day so far, right? It's hard not to here, right? It's so exciting. So this song was actually one of the first ones. I was writing this the first time I got this Virtuo, and I started experimenting with this song with this Virtuo, and it kind of turned into what it is now. Thank y'all so much.
That's my friend Katie Martin on the Virtuo. So I did the Emerald tour last September, and I was actually touring in Italy and Europe, and every place I went was, first of all, was 100 degrees till I got to Ireland. It was like 40 degrees. So I didn't have anything warm. But I got there, I had done a show the night before and slept in the airport in Rome, FMO airport. I think that's what it's called. And it did a live stream from the airport. And I got to Dublin, got on a bus, got to Donegal. And I think I was supposed to be kind of like an unannounced guest playing. And I hear someone yell out my name. And he comes over, and we hadn't seen each other in probably 30 years or so. He's got a beard. I know him as this sometimes never wearing a shirt, long blonde hair, clean-shaven rock star in New York City in the 80s. And I'm like, he looks familiar, because I was tired. And he's like, "You playing?" I'm like, "No, shh. No, you playing? Are you here? You playing?" I'm like, shh. Geoff Grayson, please come up. We used to play in New York City together in the 80s. He was in a signed band called Are You Ready? And they were rocking. And we used to hang out in the same clubs and play in the music building, and lots of memories 40 years ago.
I have a picture of Larry and I from 1980-something playing this little jam. And we're going to do it again like 40 years later. Right off the rack. Stays into it. yonder is where my baby stays. Lord, there's a red house over yonder is where my baby stays. I'm in hope to see my baby 99 and 1/2 day. Wait a minute, something's wrong here. You wanna lock the door? Wait a minute, something's wrong here. Ooh, you wanna lock the door? I got a bad feeling my baby don't live here no more. It starts small, but we got Larry Mitchell here. Back to the Future. And the Duck Walk. Back in those days, we played Pac-Man. That's my vocal. today.
Geoff Grayson, thank you guys so much for listening and hanging out. And for those of you who played guitar with me, thank you so much. Alistair, thank you again for inviting me to play. And